everyone, and welcome to VOSR International, the voice of shortwave radio. I'm your host, Wavecrest Guy. This broadcast is being transmitted through WRMI, Radio Miami International, in Okeechobee, Florida, on 9455 kilohertz. I'd like to start out this broadcast by giving a big shout out, a huge mahalo to KG7M. When I first started thinking about doing a shortwave broadcast radio show, I was in some online discussions going over the idea, and I wanted to have an intro of some Morse code. And when I brought that up, KG7M took it upon himself, went and, in no time at all, I had a couple recordings to choose from. And so I will be using those as my intro. I liked it so much that I close out each broadcast with it. So you'll be hearing those from a long time to come. So I wanted to give this huge, big thank you to KG7M. Thanks again. So now we'll start our first segment. During the premiere, I had mentioned that I was going to be breaking the program up into segments, and that I had hoped to have some guests during some of the segments, or have a guest come in and even take over a segment. So today is going to be a first on VOSR International. We are going to have a guest come in and take over a segment. Our guest uses a social media handle of Ancient Grass, and he'll be going over his foray into shortwave radio. He'll be talking about his radio room and his setup. And he'll also be talking about his shortwave radio collection. He's got quite an extensive collection that he's going to be going over. So without further ado, let's welcome Ancient Grass.
Hello, I'm honored to be a guest on the program. I live in Central New York. My username is Ancient Grass 5121 on Reddit. I'm also Ancient Grass 5121 on YouTube as well. I post a lot of videos regarding the shortwave hobby, and a lot of videos of what I've received, DXing videos, interesting things I found, any anomalies I might find on shortwave. And trust me, there are a ton of anomalies on shortwave radio. A lot of them do have explanations, some of them don't. Some of them are people that create strange transmissions, whether that be like hobbyists, pirates, governments, anything like that, any kind of group or person or entity. And a lot of that stuff is super interesting to come across, because you have your broadcasters, which are also interesting to pick up. I've picked up a lot of interesting broadcasters in my time on shortwave radio. And there's also a lot of interesting pirates and things like that. So a lot of strange things on the HF bands. HF, another term for shortwave. Very interesting. And I have a lot of radio equipment that I've collected over the years. I would say that I started in shortwave as a teenager, and I've been off and on with it ever since. But recently, I just started getting back into it as of last year. I don't know why I stopped, but once I learned about, propagation, the science of radio, things like that, it became a lot more interesting to me. Not just, I'm going to listen to crazy stuff on the shortwave bands, like crazy people, but there's also a lot of interesting things that, you can pick up with radio that you wouldn't even think you could pick up. It wasn't until I got my Reddit account and I started browsing the shortwave subreddits where I found out that you can actually, with VLF, you could listen to what's known as Dawn's Chorus, which is the, happens at dawn, and it's the natural sound of the Earth's electromagnetic field, which is very interesting. I didn't know you could do that over radio. Also, NASA uses space telescopes where they can pick up the sounds from outer space. I always thought that was interesting. I knew that before I got back into shortwave radio, but I mean, all this kind of stuff that has to do with radio in general is very interesting. And a lot of the stuff that I've discovered after getting back into it in the past year or so, it's interesting to see like different types of digital modes, faxes, broadcasters, pirates. All of that is very interesting to me. I recently discovered slow scan TV. I think that's really, really cool. Also, I discovered weather fax. I didn't even know you could do that over radio. Very interesting. And things like that. All these utility stations, all of these beacons, and to see how propagation works in general is very interesting. I have collected a lot of shortwave radios over the years. I have a Drake R8 communications receiver that I just got. Love it. It's a very beautiful radio, very sensitive, and I've picked up a lot of stuff with this radio that I couldn't receive with my other radios. I have a few radios that are portable by Texan, a few desktop models by Grundig, Eton, like the S350BL. I have a Yaesu FT890. That's a very beautiful radio. And all these radios have their pros and cons. And trust me, that's not even the beginning of the list, but we'll save that for a different time. But yeah, I mean, ever since I got back into this radio hobby, I found out that there are super cool things to listen to, not only just broadcasters, but all these other things that you can pick up. Radio is very useful. For people that are into it for emergency situations, like weather facts and all this kind of stuff, like HF Marine, if you're on a boat or something, things like that. You can pick up all these stations that could help you in situations where you might not have access to a phone, things like that. And the broadcasters, I found a lot of interesting broadcasts on shortwave, like the Voice of Turkey, Radio Romania, BBC. I still pick up the BBC. A lot of people say that shortwave's dead, but I've picked up a lot of good stuff on shortwave. Radio Exterior de España. I picked up Radio Thailand in English before. Very good. It only lasted for 30 minutes, but they do have a lot of programming out there if you are interested in learning about other countries, other cultures. I've also picked up Reach Beyond Australia. RNZ always comes in super strong, and they have a lot of good programming from news to music, and it's not just for New Zealand, it's for the entire world. So it's just like the BBC. In fact, they do have their own broadcast of the BBC. So that's pretty useful, in terms of not having access to the internet, which I know a lot of people say that everybody has access to the internet, but if you're out for a hike, if you're in an area that doesn't have very good reception, a shortwave radio can help you stay connected to the entire world. I've actually been in parts of the United States where there is no cell phone connection. There are really no radio stations except for medium wave and shortwave. Montana. But in that case, shortwave is a very useful tool, I would say. So I would always carry a shortwave radio with you if you can. If you travel, if you spend a lot of time in nature, things like that, hiking, camping, all that. Even in your home, it's a good tool to have. And it's fun, it's not just for the usefulness of it. It's also a fun thing to have. It's, I don't know about anyone else, but I find it very interesting to hear music from other countries, viewpoints of other parts of the world. Big into like international broadcasters, China Radio International. They have some good music. Radio Turkey. or the voice of Turkey, I should say. There's a lot of good music. I've actually found myself pulling up some Turkish playlists at work, you know. I mean, I don't know what they're saying, but the music sounds really nice. And yeah, things like that. And it's always interesting when you're just sitting at home and you're going through your various radios. You're just scanning around and you can pick up things that you've never heard before. Like, you have your everyday stations that you always pick up. But when conditions are really good, there are a lot of interesting things that you would not hear on a day-to-day basis. Things from China, Europe. There's a lot of interesting stations out of Europe, like Channel 292, Radio Veronica, and you could pick this stuff up just with the right antenna and the right radio. So for me, I use a 100-foot long wire that I created out of an extension cord, and I run it to my radio room, which is in the middle of the house, but I can still run it from the backyard to it from a tree all the way to my radio room. And I pick up a lot of good stuff on the lower frequencies, you know, all the way from long wave to the lower HF bands. And I also have an MLA 30 plus antenna, which works really nice. It reduces a lot of the noise. So even if you live in a noisy environment like a town or a city, and you experience a lot of noise from your neighbors, things like that, the MLA 30 helps cut down on a lot of that. I've noticed that, especially with the software-defined radio, the RTL SDR, if I use the long wire with that, I'm subject to a lot of noise. But if I use the MLA 30, you don't really experience that noise that you would with just another type of antenna. And I think a lot of that has to do with the directionality of it, and that really helps cut down on that noise. It's not so great for the lower frequencies, unfortunately, but it does work for them. I'm not going to say it's bad for that, but I mean, obviously a long wire would be great for the lower frequencies. But I would say, you know, if you're using an MLA 30, it works as a super antenna, maybe 5 megahertz to, I don't know, maybe like 20 megahertz. But it still works pretty good, even if you're listening to medium wave. I've picked up, it works just like a normal ferrite bar antenna, let's say, for the medium wave bands, you know, and up, right? So it's not useless or anything below 5 megahertz, but it, you know, you could definitely notice that it's not as strong as another antenna would be per se. But for the main HF bands, for your main broadcasters and ham bands and all that for HF, definitely works really well. I would recommend the MLA 30 antenna for sure. And if you experience a lot of noise, even at, like, I would say the lower frequencies, it still works good. So let's say you're at 160 meters or so, right? The MLA 30 still does a good job at pulling in those weaker stations, especially if you're experiencing a lot of noise on that band, because 160 meters for me and below, you know, 180 definitely has a lot of noise from things inside the house and, you know, things in the area. So I would recommend, no matter what, you go with an MLA 30. If you're just getting into it, it's definitely good. If you don't have a lot of space, it's a pretty compact antenna, very easy to set up. I have mine set up on a shovel handle, and I have it mounted to the window, and it works just fine. So definitely a good starter antenna. But I would say the most important thing about radio is having a good antenna, is having a decent radio. It's not always necessary, but if you have a cheaper radio and a really good antenna, it could be subject to overloading. So just make sure that you have a good antenna and a good radio if you're going to use a good antenna with it. But even your whip antenna should work well. You know, it's not going to work as good as an external antenna, but if that's all you can work with, you can still find a lot of stuff out there. Especially if you go outside. If you're in an area that doesn't have a lot of noise, like your local park, or you're just walking in your backyard, you could definitely pick up a lot of good stuff. And antennas aren't that hard. Like with my 100-foot long wire antenna, made that out of an extension cord. No money. The extension cord was free. It was just garbage anyway. I just put an alligator clip on it, and it turned out to be a really great antenna. So anything like that, it's not really hard to set up anything for radio. I mean, you just have to have that will, and if there's a will, there's a way. So I would recommend that, if you can't afford something, or you just don't want to put a lot of money into it, you could definitely create your own stuff. But if you do want to put some money into it, definitely look into like an MLA 30, something like that. So I'm going to talk about some of the radios that I've come to really like in this hobby. My number one radio, I would say, is the Drake R8 communications receiver. The one that I have right now is something that I got at an estate sale. The previous owner passed away recently, and I was able to pick it up for around $265 US. And it has a VHF converter, it has the speaker, and it works extremely well. It's a super sensitive receiver, and yeah, if you want to drop, I think they're selling for like $550 on eBay. So if you can find a used one, which that's all you're going to find since it's not manufactured anymore, I would look into like an R8. If you want to drop even more money, go for like an R8B or R8A receiver. But they're definitely really good radios. If you want to take this hobby really seriously, I'd recommend getting a Drake. The other radios I have are a Grundig Satellite 750, which is a really good radio. It's pretty small compared to like the Millennium, but it's not. I would say it's not as good of a speaker as the Satellite Millennium. So if you really are into the sound, I would go with the Grundig Satellite 800 Millennium. But if you want something compact for like your desk and you don't have a lot of space, like with me, I would go with the Satellite 750. My Grundig 800 Millennium is definitely a very good radio. I would say it's third to the Drake, because second to the Drake would be the Yaesu FT890 that I have. But the Grundig 800 Millennium is definitely a really good radio. It's super easy to tune in those single sideband signals, and overall it's a pretty sensitive radio. I would say that I'm not really a big fan of the medium wave reception on it, but I am a big fan of the setup. It can take a UHF connector in the back for the HF bands. It has a 500 ohm connection in the back if you want to set up an antenna like that. It also has an F connector in the back, which you can hook up an old TV antenna to. Should be able to pick up FM reception just fine. And it also has an airband, which the 750 also has. 750 is a little bit different because instead of having all those connectors, it just has the 500 ohm connection and it has a BNC connection. So, and that's both for shortwave band and the airband. And also if you want to hook up an external AM antenna to the Grundig 750, it takes a 3.5 millimeter connector, which I have used my Grundig AN200, which is a very good medium wave antenna. So if you do want to buy something like that, definitely go with a Grundig AN200 or similar antenna. There are some other ones out there and they work just as fine. But yeah, so definitely the Grundigs are a nice radio too. The Yaesu FT890. So one thing I like about the Drake radio, the Drake R8, is that it cuts down on a lot of noise. There's not a lot of noise when you're listening to the radio, especially on all bands, I would say, actually. But the FT890 it doesn't really cut down on the noise. It's pretty much like the other radios that I mentioned, like the Grundigs. But it's definitely good for like receiving long wave beacons. Medium wave is pretty good, but for the HF bands, there is a lot of noise. The Drake R8 does very well with the HF bands. It does very well for medium wave, but when it comes to trying to receive long wave beacons, it's not as good in the long wave part as like the ASU FT890 would be. Also, a couple other radios that I have is an Eton S350DL. It's a very nice radio. The only thing is it's subject to image frequency, which is common on cheaper radios. So if you're looking to get a good radio, I definitely look out for that, because you could be listening to a station, let's say it seems like it's out of band and you're like, that's odd, that really shouldn't be there, but what you're hearing is an image of an actual station on some other frequency. So you'll be picking it up out of band and you'll think it's some kind of pirate station or some anomaly, but in reality it's just an image of a different frequency. So just look out for that. The Texan R97000DX also has this problem. It's advertised as a really good radio and the reviews are really good, but I've noticed that while it's not supposed to have this problem, it also does have the image frequency problem. So watch out for that. But they are good radios, but if you are new to the hobby, that might throw you off if you do get one of these radios. So just keep that in mind. The Texan PL380 is also a really nice radio, AM mode only, so just look out for that. But it's a very good compact radio. Also has a temperature display, which is really nice. Presets, direct entry, and it doesn't have any image frequency problems. So the Texan PL380, very good radio. The Texan R9012 is also a great radio, super cheap analog radio. I've never had an image frequency problem in that radio, so if you are looking for an inexpensive radio, that's also a super nice radio. If you're just getting into the hobby, super small, fits in your pants pocket. You could take it anywhere with you. 2 AA batteries, and yeah, it works super great. When I go for walks in the summer on trails, I take it with me and see what I can pick up, and it's picked up some really cool and interesting stations that, other radios might not be able to receive, especially something like that. So something super cheap, super small, and it works really nice. And I have a few other radios. I might talk about them at a different time. I might mention them on my YouTube channel, so just stay tuned for that. But yeah, there are a lot of great radios. Another radio that I have is the there's a PL600 that I own. It's a really nice radio. I don't think they make them anymore, but just keep an eye out for that. Also, the Texan PL880, really great radio. Comes with a super nice carrying case, headphones, antenna. Most of the Texan radios do come with an external antenna, headphones, power cable. The 880 is nice because it is a rechargeable battery, so if you don't want to keep buying batteries for your radio, the PL880 is definitely a good choice for that. Has a super nice telescopic antenna. The only thing it doesn't have is the airband, but I'm not really into that, so I really don't care. But it's definitely a really nice radio, really great sound with the PL880. Super nice. The display is super nice. The tuning knob is really smooth, at least with my radio, but I think they're all pretty much the same. Single sideband functions really nice. I picked up a lot of great stations, and it's super smooth to listen to as well. The sound is amazing out of that radio, and it's relatively cheap. I think it'd run you about maybe $150. I'm not really sure, but it has all the functions: single sideband, long wave, medium wave, shortwave, FM, and direct entry, no image frequency. It's a digital radio. So yeah, it's overall the PL880 is really nice, and it comes with a super cool map, which I have hanging in my radio room. But yeah, it's a really nice radio. It's one of my favorite portables, along with the PL600 and the PL380. But if I want single sideband, I usually take the PL600 or the PL880. So PL880 is a very common radio, highly sought after. A lot of people like this radio. So if you want something small, something you could take with you anywhere, it's a great battery powered radio that you could take with you anywhere. It's rechargeable and it's super nice. So just check it out if you're interested. Another radio I have is it's a vintage radio. It's a Panasonic RF2200. Very nice radio, very very highly sought after. A lot of people love this radio. It's about 40 years old. About all bands on it are super nice. AM, FM, shortwave. I picked up shortwave stations that some of my other radios couldn't even pick up. Like, for example, when I'm trying to get the BBC, it's not pointed towards me, so it's beaming off towards maybe like Southeast Asia, and I'm able to pick it up here, just fine. With very low noise, very stable signal. So I really like that about that radio. And the sound is super smooth too, so it doesn't matter what you're listening to, whether it's on shortwave or AM. I originally saw that radio in an AM DXing video, and I really wanted to get it because of that. So, and that's when I bought it. Maybe I'd say like 10 years ago, and it's definitely a lot of it's a lot of people's dream to own that radio. So the RF2200 by Panasonic, very nice radio. If you can get one, go ahead, but they are super expensive. But if you can get a cheaper one, keep your eyes open. All right, along with the Drake, I'd say it's in the top of my list. So, and yeah, and I own some other radios. Cheaper radios. I own a Sony portable. I think it's SW11 is the model number. I think it's ICF SW11. Very nice radio. I own a Magnavox shortwave radio portable. It's very nice. And I also own a Emerson MBR1. It only goes from 4 megahertz to 12.200 megahertz, but it's a super nice radio. It covers the main shortwave bands. It has great sound, a really nice speaker, and I actually love it a lot. I own 3 of them, so I actually technically 4, but I gave one to my mother. It's definitely a great radio, but if you want those higher frequencies, maybe not so great. But if you do come across one just out in the wild somewhere, I would definitely pick it up. It's very sensitive for the frequencies that it does cover. So definitely look into that. But yeah, that's my collection of radios. There's a few others that I haven't mentioned. Some of the vintage radios that I own. I have a few of those. But a couple of radios that aren't so highly sought after, but maybe I'll mention them at a different time. But that's it for this segment. Again, if you want to check me out, I'm on Reddit. I'm AncientGrass5121. That's Ancient_Grass_5121. And on YouTube, it's also the same. It's Ancient_Grass_5121. And I post a lot of DXing videos, things that I've discovered, introductions into radio, things like that. So if you want to check me out, please go ahead and do so. And also keep tuning into this program. I really enjoy it. It's great for people that are into radio, like pretty much everybody listening in. So, and yeah, I also post this program on my YouTube channel as well. So check out previous recordings that I recorded here in Central New York. That's my location. And also check out the subreddit, r/Grundig Shortwave Radio. And post your DXing videos. Post anything that is radio related, from long wave to medium wave to short wave. Even sporadic E, that's also very interesting to me. I've picked up stations here in New York all the way from Texas with sporadic E, in Florida and Georgia, Missouri. So very interesting. I love the summer months and the spring months because sporadic E is really big. So that's coming up. So keep switching around on your FM dial. See if you can pick up anything with sporadic E. And yeah, so keep your ears open. That also happens on CB radio. That's why they talk about skip a lot. That's a big CB thing. CB radio, for those who don't know, is the upper portion of the HF band, so it is part of shortwave. So if you heard about CB radio, that's also technically shortwave. So that's also a very cool subject, probably for another time. I do have a CB radio segment on my YouTube channel, so if you want to check that out, please go ahead and do so. And I'm going to sign out, over and out, 73s, and take care, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the Voice of Shortwave Radio. I'm honored to be a guest. So, and please keep tuning into future episodes. And I hope you all really enjoyed this segment.
I want to thank Ancient Grass for being our first guest here on VOSR International. I hope you enjoyed that segment. I wanted to point out that Ancient Grass sent me a bunch of pictures, and I'm going to be posting those on our website at VOSRinternational.com. So you'll be able to go check it out. You'll be able to look at all the radios that he talked about, look at his radio room, and feel free to send us any comments while you're in the website. Just click on the mail icon, and you can send us some correspondence. And also, if you have any comments about the guest segment, or if you'd like to be a guest and take over a segment, let me know. Send me an email at VOSRINT@yahoo.com. That's VOSRINT@yahoo.com. Now we'll move on to our communication segment. As most of you know, shortwave radio does not have any metrics. It's not like TV or any other medium where you can see how many listeners or how many people are tuned in. So the best way for me to tell if this broadcast is getting out there is by communications, by direct communications, and you guys sending in emails and contacting me. There's a few ways to contact us here at VOSR International. And the first is a simple email. And the email address is VOSRINT@yahoo.com. That's VOSRINT@yahoo.com. You can also leave us a message on Facebook. We're at VOSR International there. And then we also have a website, VOSRinternational.com. There's a email button there, a mail button. You can just click that and send a message that way. One thing I can tell for sure is that propagation was much better in April than it was in May. Most of the reports I got here in April all had a really good reception. Everybody was saying that the reception was excellent. In March, with that premiere broadcast, there was a lot of fading, and so the propagation definitely wasn't as good. So we'll get into it, and we'll start here from our emails. First off, Peter from Oklahoma on a Kenwood R1000 with a Moonraker Limited X1 vertical antenna. He said the reception was coming in loud and clear there. And he appreciates the program. Then on Discord, Kynon, that's Kynon, from Wichita, reported that everything sounded well on his end. Blah Stuff said it was loud and clear from Wisconsin. We actually had quite a few Wisconsin listeners, and just a side note that I lived in Wisconsin for 35 years in the Reedsburg-Baraboo area. And Blah Stuff uses a Master Player 30, and he was getting Master Player 30 was receiving a 9+ on his radio. He was using an SDR Play RSP1A with a MLA30 antenna. Also on Radio Reference, there are a few people there. AB5ID from Kansas City. The audio was great, and he was using an ATS 20+ radio. Back on Facebook, Fred reports that the signal was booming in southern Ontario. And then also from Facebook, World of Shortwave Group, John reports excellent reception. He had a SINPO of 55555, all fives on that, and you can't get any better. And he was using his Texan PL880 with an MLA30 loop, active loop antenna. And he is in Concho, Arizona. Now for some emails. Carlos reports that he had a great signal on his PL880 in northeast Mexico. Also, Keith, he was using a Malahit DSP2 SDR with a Wellbrook ALA1530N mag loop at 20 feet and the SWL antenna, and also an EF SWL antenna. It was coming in good reception, and he always wanted a Radio Shack DX394. I did get that comment quite a bit, that a lot of people really like that radio, and were never able to get one, and they're on the lookout for one. Then I received a very detailed reception report from a regular listener, Paul, from St. Catherine, Ontario, Canada. He was using a Washington, D.C. SDR, and he reported excellent reception. And then he was using a link from Radio Schematics. And he'll post that. I'll post that on the website. But he was getting a SINPO grading of 54455, so excellent. He also has a Radio Shack DX160. Justin caught our rebroadcast, and he's from Wisconsin, and he has a new RSPO Duo SDR, and he's using an MLA 30 plus antenna indoors. The signal was S9 plus, but he did have some periods of rapid fading between S7 and S9. Craig from Ontario, Canada caught our broadcast, and he was using his main radio as an FRG7. That's his main radio. He has a substantial radio collection from after 55 years of being into shortwave. 55 years. He's definitely seen it all. Then we had Dave from Northeast Ohio. He reports good reception on his Panasonic RF2200. Dennis from Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, was just turning the dial and found our show, and he reported that the reception was very nice and S9 plus signal. Through our website, we had Hank send us a message from Northwest Georgia. He listened in on different radios, mostly homemade regenerative receivers using an 80-meter dipole, 40 feet above ground level. Reception was excellent. Also, he picked up an AC crane after our first broadcast and reports that he's really enjoying it. He likes the equipment and the apps reviews and the mailbag segment. He states that they have a small shortwave listening group in his area, and they are all listening. So I want to give a big aloha shout out to that entire group, and thanks for listening. And lastly, Todd in Washington State says, great show. And he switched over to his DX394 after hearing me talk about it. Thanks for those kind words, Todd. Really appreciate it. So again, thanks for all the communications, and keep them coming. Send in any comments and reception reports to VOSRINT@yahoo.com. That's VOSRINT@yahoo.com. And you can even message us through my YouTube channel at Wavecrest Guy. That's Wavecrest Guy on YouTube. Let's move over to our last segment, and that's going to be on programming. What are people listening to on shortwave? One of the things that you hear all the time, you see online, people are asking, what are you listening to? Or shortwave is a dying medium. There's nothing on shortwave anymore. You hear a lot of the old timers who've been around through the heyday of the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and they're not excited about shortwave because they know what it used to be when you're comparing it to the heyday. It gets a little rough when you do that. I'm here to say, though, that this program is an example. There are a lot of things to still listen to on shortwave. In the heyday, you'd be able to just sit down and turn the dial, and every 5 kilohertz you'd find a new station. It's not like that anymore, that's for sure. But there's definitely no reason to discourage people from trying out shortwave, grabbing a radio, and see what they can find. Now, of course, you can get limited by your equipment, by your location for sure, and what you're close to, and also propagation, just the conditions. It's going to make a difference on what you're able to pick up. But there are so many things out there, and I kind of set this up with my last 2 broadcasts, because I had a few segments in there that actually tie into this. I talked about the 3PO app. I talked about web or internet SDR. So there are ways that you can even get more stations and pick up and listen to than the ones you're just getting on your radio, and you'd be able to enjoy them a lot more. So that's a big reason why I had those segments before this one, before I had my first programming segment, because they all tie in together. So when you start and you grab a radio and you're just starting to turn through the dial, or you're hitting the scan function and it stops and you pick up a broadcast, a lot of times it might be in a different language, in a language that you don't understand. And that's where the 3PO can come in. So a lot of people just want to go through and try to find as many stations as they can too. They hunt for them, and they keep a log. I keep a log myself of which ones I've picked up, where they're at, the time of day. So it's really part of the hobby. That's one of the main things there. It's part of the hobby, but you also can, when you find good programming, you want to be able to return to it and listen to it. And if it's in a foreign language and you don't understand it, if you start listening to it with 3PO, you're going to be able to find there's quite a bit of programming out there that you might enjoy. Then you can also be in a city or someplace where there's a lot of disturbance, the propagation's really bad, a lot of interference, and you're not able to pick up anything. You might not be able to put out a nice antenna so you can pick up some farther broadcasts. That's where, again, the web SDR or the internet SDR, you can go online, pick a different location. If you say you live on the East Coast, you can pick a location on the West Coast or in Europe, anywhere pretty much, and then you can listen to the stations that are close to them, that are broadcasted towards them in their direction. That's one of the things with these broadcasts. This broadcast here on 9455 kilohertz, it goes out of Okeechobee, Florida, and it is going towards North America, and it's going across towards the West Coast and south a little bit. So it has a direction. Now that doesn't mean that on certain days that it doesn't widen out and other people can pick up the broadcast in different locations that it's not really aimed at. And that's one of the fun things about shortwave, is that you can pick up those once in a while. So it does make a difference on where you're at, and that's where the SDR, the internet SDR, will help. So all those things kind of help you out and really expand what shortwave is right now. Again, if you're going to be comparing it to the heyday, you're probably going to be disappointed and you're going to be down on it. It's funny, though, you still listen to a lot of the old timers that have been around forever and were in those heydays and even made their own radios. They're still using them, though. They are still listening, and so they don't necessarily encourage everyone all the time, but they are still listening, and there's a lot more things out there than just regular broadcasts, and we'll get into that in future episodes. One thing that has really helped shortwave in recent years is the influx of receivers, especially cheap receivers, and of course mostly out of China. But there are a lot of cheap radios out there. So if you just want to try out shortwave, you can get those cheap receivers, those cheap radios, and give it a try. And I on my YouTube channel, I've even done some some reviews of some of these low-end radios, and there was one that was like $7.50, and that still was able to pick up a pretty good amount of broadcasts. So it's very reasonable to be able to go ahead, grab a radio, and give it a try. Again, they're not going to be the best or have the best features, but it'll get you started, and it'll give you an idea of whether you want to continue and whether you want to upgrade in the future of any of your equipment. Also, again, antennas are a big thing to this, so just clipping on a piece of wire onto that whip antenna is going to make a big difference in some locations. Now, one thing that's definitely hurt shortwave, of course, is the internet, and there's podcasts. It just seems like everybody has a podcast, and there's definitely a reason why I did not decide to go the podcast route with this. It's about shortwave radio, getting content out there. So it is possible to do this and get the content out there for listeners. And there are new shows coming out, so you just got to keep watching. Look at your regular broadcasts, and like WRMI, for example. Watch them. They'll have new programming coming on. You got to watch the different dates and times as they change. But there are stuff that's coming out now. For myself, I ended out. My show broadcast the first week of the month, and then each week after that I have a rebroadcast of the show, and then the next month, the very first week, another show comes out. I wait a few months, and then I am going to post these shows on my YouTube channel. That's Wavecrest Guy. Wavecrest Guy on YouTube, and I did just post the premiere broadcast. So I'm not going to post these. They're probably going to be a couple months behind. So it's always going to be best to keep updated with the shows right here on shortwave, right at 9455 kilohertz. That's always going to be best. And the rebroadcasts are there the next week if you're busy or can't make it or propagation is bad. But it's going to be good for everybody to know. If you want to keep up with it, just head over to Wavecrest Guy on YouTube, and then you can listen to the shows that you might have missed. All right, so after I clarified the definition of what the segment's about, the programming segment, let's get to it. This month I'm going to talk about CRI, China Radio International. It's the big dog. Everybody, if you look online or see any information, everybody can find China Radio International. They're all over. They have very powerful broadcasting transmissions, and they're all in all directions. They're definitely worldwide. They put a lot of money into this. It's a country owned and broadcasted shows, and it's everywhere. But now I do have heard a few people they have some problems picking them up in certain areas. So that is possible that you'll have that. And again, that's where an SDR get on the internet. You can listen to them that way. And again, you could have that language barrier. But they do broadcast in a lot of languages also. There's a ton of languages, and usually the broadcasts are at least a half hour. Most of them are an hour in each language. There's also many people that will say, well, that's just propaganda. I don't want to listen to that. There's nothing there interesting me. But there actually is. There's actual regular programming on China Radio International. I picked up turning the dial in English. I picked up a show that was going over some ancient instruments that the Chinese play, and they actually played some songs with them and actually just played the instrument as they explained how old it was, what the origin was. It was a very, very interesting show. So there are plenty of shows that are out there like that. I'm going to concentrate on a couple that I like to listen to, and the first one is the Beijing Hour. And that again, it's in English, and you'll have to look, and you can go online and take a look and find out the frequencies, because they're all over. Different times on different frequencies in English, or again, you can listen to it with the 3PO app. But you'll have to take a look, and things are always moving with shortwave too. So. Take a look and try to find the Beijing Hour. It is their news program, and so of course you're going to get a different slant to it. But it is really interesting to listen to some of these, to their side. I guess listen to the other side of it. Again, you should be able to tell them what's the propaganda and what isn't. But they also have more local news. Also, it's not always the nationwide things where they're against something else or against another country or trying to do something or trying to change someone's mind. So keep that in mind, that they will have these short local segments where they're talking about a festival or talking about a person that did something in a neighborhood or in a city. So they do have a lot of segments that can be quite interesting, and it's worth listening to. Try to find that, take a listen, and if you do come up with it and end up liking it, send me a message. Send us what you're listening to. The next one I want to go into is one of my favorites. It's Roundtable. And Roundtable is actually a podcast that they end up broadcasting on China Radio International. I looked. You can Google that, and you'll actually come to a page, and it'll have the links, and you can actually play them without listening to them on shortwave. I listen to it on shortwave, and it's usually Monday through Friday. Here in Hawaii, it's on at about 10, between 10 and 11 o'clock, but of course that changes with the time change. But I always thought it was an hour show, but as I was starting to research this, most of their podcasts are a half hour. So they must put two of them together to fill up an hour on China Radio International. But this kind of runs the gamut, and I'm gonna. It's more like a talk show on TV, and it's very similar to that because they have a wide range of topics, and they might have two. Or they might just have one topic and they'll talk about it for a half hour, but they might have a couple topics in there and they'll talk about them for 10 and 15 minutes. And they have a regular panel of people that are on there that talk. And it's Lai Ming is one of the hosts. Steve Hatherley is the other host, and Yushan is the third host. Those are regulars. Sometimes they'll bring in guests if they're going to be talking about something specific and they want a subject matter expert type person on there. So that's the main thing about this show is you kind of get these different perspectives because they're all kind of a different age. I believe that Steve Hatherley, I believe he was from Canada, so he now lives in China, and he's from Canada, so he's definitely seen two worlds there and how differently things operate. I remember picking up a show, broadcasted them, and they were talking about, it was around the holidays, and they were talking about TVs, and the TV sales have really spiked in China. And then they actually we're talking about worldwide and gave different figures on what was selling and what isn't. And it seems in China the projection TVs are really big. That they're really big sellers, and those can be huge. So they have to have a big wall to project them on. But they went through the sizes and which is the biggest sellers in China, and it was actually very interesting. And it wasn't any different than you think of things here in the United States or in Canada or in Mexico. So the talking about the whole situation with shopping and buying, it was all pretty much the same as you'd hear, but it's just a different area. So that's where the slight twist comes in. I went through the podcast and I just wrote down a few of their subjects that they actually ended up talking about. And it was China young shoppers face emotional fulfillment. So it's a reason for buying things and consuming products. Corn, potato rice, or canned potato rice, dethroned rice. China's picnic trend. And then health products at Consumer Products Expo. So they go through these things, and it doesn't even sound interesting sometimes. And so I'm not going to listen to that. But as they start talking about it, it actually ends up being a pretty interesting show, and it's amazing what they can put together and make it interesting. And the things you learn, you just never know until you try it out. Now, I have a lot of snippets recorded of segments of the Beijing Hour and just a lot of stuff from China Radio on my YouTube channel at Wavecrest Guy. So go check them out. I made a playlist that is just China Radio International. And there's 80 videos in there that you can check out. Most of them are pretty short. They'll come a couple minutes. They'll be 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes. I think the longest might be 15-minute segments. But you can go in there and you can check it out and you can see what I'm talking about. See if it's something you might be interested. And if it is, then you'll be able to go, check it out, turn the dial, get it right off for shortwave, and take a listen. It's definitely something that definitely makes shortwave unique, and it's a programming worth listening to. So that's one of the main things here in this programming segment. There are plenty of shows out there, broadcasts that you can catch, and you're going to end up liking them, and you might be returning to them time and time again. So for me, these two, Roundtable is one of the ones that I really enjoy, and even the Beijing Hour. I usually try to catch Roundtable as it comes out, so I try to get that one. It's on Monday through Friday, like I said, and I usually try to get that every day. And the Beijing Hour, sometimes I get, depending if I'm just turning the dial or what I'm doing. But I will go back and I will check. And if I do run into the Beijing Hour, I'll definitely take a listen to that. But Roundtable is one of those for me. I really don't like to miss that one. That's one of my favorites. So let me know what you think. Send in what you're listening to on shortwave. Do you follow any of these broadcasts? Send me a message in at VOSRINT@yahoo.com. That's VOSRINT@yahoo.com. Or you can hit our website at VOSRinternational.com and just hit the mail icon there, and you can send a message in. Let us know what you think about the segment. Let us know what you're listening to on Shortwave Radio. And that concludes our May broadcast of VOSR International, the voice of Shortwave Radio. This program will be rebroadcast every week through the month of May on Saturdays. So there will be 4 rebroadcasts at 0400 UTC, that's 12 a.m. Eastern Time, on WRMI out of Okeechobee, Florida, on 9455 kilohertz. Our next new broadcast will be Saturday, June 7th, at 0400 UTC on 9455 kilohertz. Until the next show, ahoy ho, everyone.